Welcome. Let your shoulders soften, let your breath slow, and let today drift away from you. There is nothing to do here but rest. Living light exists in more places on Earth than most people expect. It glimmers in forest litter, in tide pools, in insects drifting through summer air, and through nearly every layer of the sea. Long before electricity, the world already carried its own kind of glow. Bioluminescence comes from a chemical reaction, not borrowed sunlight. Inside certain cells, molecules meet oxygen and release a burst of energy as visible light. No sunlight is borrowed. The glow is built fresh, moment by moment, inside a living body. It happens the same way, whether the creature lives on a forest floor or a mile beneath the waves. Luciferin and luciferase release photons without giving off heat. Luciferin supplies the fuel. Luciferase is the enzyme that starts the reaction. Together they create what scientists call cold light. Almost none of the energy escapes as warmth, so a firefly's glow could rest against your skin, and you would feel only light, never heat. Fireflies flash in patterns unique to their own species. Each species blinks its own rhythm of pulses and pauses, like a signature written in light. A female often waits low in the grass, watching for the exact pattern that matches her own kind. Get the rhythm wrong, and she simply stays dark. Get it right, and she answers. A firefly's lantern can switch on and off many times each second. Tiny valves control the oxygen feeding the reaction inside its abdomen. Oxygen on, light appears. Oxygen off, darkness returns. The switching happens faster than an eye can fully track, so what looks like one blink may hide several smaller pulses folded inside it. Glowworms string cave ceilings with points of blue light. In caves across New Zealand and Australia, their larvae hang silk threads dotted with sticky beads. Each thread glows just enough to lure small insects upward. Insects rise toward the glow. From below, a cave ceiling can look like a clear night sky, though it is only hunger wearing a small light. Honey fungus glows faintly enough that old woodsmen called it foxfire. Its threads spread through rotting wood, giving off a low green light too dim for most eyes to notice by day. At night, in deep forest darkness, a fallen log can seem to smolder from within. It was only a fungus. Travelers once mistook that glow for something otherworldly, breaking down wood, one thread at a time. Raphael Dubois named the two molecules behind living light in the 1880s. A French physiologist, he ground up glowing clams and beetles to separate the chemistry inside them. He called one substance luciferin and the other luciferase, both drawn from a Latin word for light-bringer. His naming stuck. It still describes the same reaction in fireflies, jellyfish, and deep-sea fish today. Most of Earth's bioluminescent life actually lives in the sea. On land, glowing creatures are the exception, tucked into a handful of insects and fungi. In the ocean, the pattern reverses entirely. Whole communities of fish, jellyfish, and tiny drifting plankton carry the ability to glow. The sea, far more than any forest, turns out to be the true home of living light. Bioluminescence appears in freshwater lakes and rivers, only rarely, unlike the ocean. Freshwater lacks the saltwater chemistry that many light-producing reactions depend on, and it rarely holds the plankton that fill the sea with glow. A handful of freshwater snails and insect larvae manage it, but they remain uncommon. Rivers and lakes stay dark. The ocean, by contrast, glimmers almost everywhere you look. Let your breath find its own slow shape now. No need to guide it. Feel the exhale grow a little longer than the inhale, like a tide pulling back further than it came in. With each breath out, let your shoulders drop a fraction more into whatever is holding you. There is no place to be but here, held, breathing, unnoticed by the world. let the next breath come whenever it likes. Sunlight loses its color quickly once water closes over it. Warm reds and oranges vanish first, swallowed within the first few meters. Yellows fade soon after, leaving only a cooler, thinner light behind. What remains drifts downward as a pale blue haze, less like daylight and more like a memory of it. The ocean edits the sun before it lets any of it through. True ocean darkness begins closer to the surface than most people assume. Within the first couple hundred meters, the sea already looks dim to human eyes, though it isn't dark yet to the creatures living there. By around 1,000 meters, the last trace of sunlight has surrendered completely. No lantern, no window, nothing overhead to hint that a sun exists at all. From there on, night is permanent. 9 out of 10 deep-sea animals make their own light. Among fish, jellyfish, worms, and countless drifting creatures, glowing has become less a rarity and more a shared inheritance. Walk through a sunlit meadow, and glowing life is scarce. Descend into the deep sea, and it is nearly everywhere. Darkness, it turns out, did not extinguish light. It multiplied the reasons for it. The color of living light shifts with both depth and purpose. Near the surface, flashes lean toward blue-green, mixing easily with the last of the daylight. Deeper down, colors narrow toward a single cool blue, precise and economical. Some creatures glow to lure, others to warn, others simply to be seen by their own kind. The hue often reveals the reason before the behavior does. Blue and green light travel farther through seawater than any other color. Their shorter wavelengths slip past water molecules with the least resistance, carrying a glow much further than any red or yellow light could manage. This is why so much of the ocean's living light lands somewhere on that same cool spectrum. Evolution, working blindly, still found the same efficient answer again and again. Blue simply carries the farthest. Red light fades away within the first stretch of ocean depth. Water absorbs it almost immediately, long before blue or green begin to weaken. This is part of why so few creatures below the surface bother producing red light at all. Making a color no one down there can see would be, in a sense, wasted effort. Most life simply skipped that shade entirely. A ship's captain in the 1800s logged glowing seas that puzzled him for decades. He recorded pale sheets of light stretching to the horizon, bright enough to read by on some nights, and had no explanation to offer his crew. Other sailors reported the same strange brightness across separate oceans and separate years. Only later did naturalists connect these accounts to swarms of glowing microorganisms drifting near the surface. The mystery in his logbook eventually found its quiet answer. Dinoflagellates spark with blue light whenever the water around them moves. A paddle, a fin, even a gentle current can trigger their glow in an instant. Each flash lasts only a fraction of a second, but with enough of them together, the whole sea can seem to shimmer. Their light is a kind of alarm, tripped by disturbance rather than choice. Stillness keeps them dark. Movement wakes their glow. A breaking wave at night can leave a trail of cold blue fire. As the wave curls and collapses, countless dinoflagellates are jostled awake, each contributing its brief spark of light. The result looks like flame without any heat at all, foam glowing along the shoreline before it fades. Footprints in wet sand can even flicker faintly for a moment. The ocean, disturbed gently enough, answers with light instead of sound. Cone jellies ripple with traveling lines of light along their bodies. Rows of tiny hairs beat in sequence, catching whatever light exists and scattering it into shifting rainbow bands. In true darkness, many of the same jellies answer a touch with a soft blue glow instead. The light seems to travel, wave after wave, down the length of the body. It looks for a moment like a small lantern learning to breathe. Weight settles into the mattress now, one part of you at a time. Start with your feet, letting them grow heavy, sinking a little deeper with each breath out. That heaviness climbs slowly upward, through the calves, the knees, the long muscles of the legs. Your hips grow heavy too, and then your back, pressed into whatever is holding you. By the time it reaches your shoulders, there is only the bed and the weight it is already carrying. Certain bays in Puerto Rico hold water that glows every single night. Mosquito Bay, ringed by mangroves, keeps a population of dinoflagellates dense enough to light up with every paddle stroke. Warm, shallow water, and little mixing with the open sea, let their numbers build year after year. Visitors moving through at night leave trailing outlines of blue fire behind their hands. The bay has kept this glow going for longer than most of its visitors have been alive. Satellites have photographed glowing patches of open ocean spanning many miles. Seen from orbit, these patches appear as pale, even sheets of light across otherwise dark water. Ships passing through them at night sometimes describe the sea as looking almost like snow under moonlight. The glow can stretch far enough that a vessel may take hours to cross it. From space, it looks like a quiet section of ocean, simply lit from below. These glowing patches, called Milky Seas, remain rare and only partly explained. They are thought to come from vast colonies of glowing bacteria, rather than the flashing plankton seen closer to shore. Unlike a wave's quick spark, their light stays on, steady and diffuse, for nights at a time. Why the bacteria gather in such numbers, and why so rarely, is still not fully settled. Sailors have reported them for centuries, long before satellites confirmed they were real. A small volume of surface seawater can hold thousands of glowing plankton. A single cup held up to a light might look like plain seawater and nothing more. Yet disturb it gently, and countless tiny flashes answer back at once. Each organism is smaller than a grain of sand, invisible until it lights up. Together, they turn an ordinary handful of ocean into something briefly luminous. Plankton light may work as a kind of burglar alarm against predators. When something grazes on them, their sudden flash can reveal the grazer's position to anything larger nearby. The light does nothing to harm the attacker directly. Instead, it calls attention to a meal that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. In this way, the glow protects not by fighting, but by exposing. A grazer that flashes light can draw something larger to attack its attacker. A tiny copepod, caught by a hungry fish, may light up just enough to reveal that fish's outline to an even bigger predator waiting nearby. The copepod itself may not survive the encounter, but its flash can still shift the danger one step further up the chain. Light, in this case, becomes a kind of quiet alliance between strangers. Charles Darwin described a phosphorescent sea during his voyage on the Beagle. Sailing off the coast of South America, he wrote of water that seemed to burn without flame, glowing wherever the ship's wake disturbed it. He noted the sky above as dark as the sea below was bright. Darwin had no explanation for the microscopic life behind the glow, only careful, patient observation. His journal entry became one of the earliest written records of the phenomenon by a trained naturalist. Ostracods, no bigger than a grain of rice, release glowing clouds when startled. These small crustaceans carry chemicals that mix on contact with seawater, producing a burst of blue light around their bodies. Predators that snap at them often end up with a mouthful of glowing fluid instead of prey. That sudden brightness can be enough to make a fish hesitate and let go. Even something this small has found its own quiet way to disappear. Male sea fireflies court females with pulses of light in total darkness. Each male releases his own chemical spark, hovering in place before flashing again. He repeats a rhythm particular to his kind. A female recognizes the pattern and answers with light of her own. Where the moon has set, this exchange may be the only conversation happening for miles. No sound goes with it, only pulses, rising and fading, carrying an entire courtship in cold blue light. Their courtship trails have been likened to strings of tiny blue beads. As a male sea firefly swims upward, he leaves a chain of glowing points behind him, each one a fresh burst of chemical light. Seen from above, the trail looks almost deliberate, like a strand laid carefully across the water. Divers have described entire patches of sea stitched with these faint necklaces. The beads dissolve within seconds. Nothing is left but darkness, restored. Somewhere beyond this room, a sound arrives and fades, the hum of a passing car, wind leaning on a window, a house easing into its own stillness for the night. You don't need to listen for it. Let it come and go, the way small sounds always do, without asking anything of you. Your shoulders can loosen a little more with each one that passes and disappears. Let your eyelids grow heavier now, unwilling to lift again. Jellyfish near the surface ripple with light along the edge of their bell. As they pulse through the water, thin lines of blue light travel outward from the rim, following each contraction like a signal moving through glass. The glow rarely lasts more than a moment. Some species light up only when disturbed. Others seem to shimmer as they move. Against a dark swell, a single jellyfish can look like a lantern breathing underwater. Certain surface, squid squirt glowing ink instead of dark ink. Rather than the familiar black cloud used to escape a predator, these squid release a burst of luminous particles that flare briefly in the water. The light confuses more than it conceals. A predator drawn toward the glow finds only empty water where the squid used to be. This trick trades concealment for distraction, betting that brightness can work as well as shadow. Luminous decoys can buy just enough time to slip away. A burst of unexpected brightness, however brief, forces a predator to pause and reassess. In that pause, a squid or shrimp can vanish into open water. Timing matters more than intensity here. Even half a second of confusion is often all that separates a meal from an escape. Evolution has favored this small trait of light for time, again and again, in very different animals. Soldiers in the Pacific once crushed sea fireflies to read maps without giving away their position. During the Second World War, troops dried these tiny crustaceans and carried them in pouches. Adding a little water to the crushed bodies produced enough pale light to read by, dim enough not to be seen from a distance. No batteries were needed, no open flame to spot from the air. A small sea creature became, briefly, a tool of survival far from any ocean. Daylight finally gives out at a dim boundary called the twilight zone. Below this line, sunlight still lingers, but only as a weak, gray suggestion of itself. Colors begin to fade well before true darkness sets in. Fish here often have larger eyes, built to catch what little light remains. It is neither fully lit nor fully dark, a long, steady in-between. 90% of sunlight has vanished by roughly 200 meters down. What began at the surface as a full, warm spectrum has, by this depth, thinned into a narrow band of blue and gray. Photographers working at this range often describe the light as feeling borrowed rather than natural. This depth marks the rough edge where photosynthesis becomes impossible for nearly every plant. Below it, nothing green can grow. Only animals, and the light they carry themselves, remain useful here. Almost no red wavelength survives that far into the water. Red light is absorbed faster than any other color, disappearing within the first few dozen meters, long before blue or green fade. This is part of why blood looks black in deep water, and why a red fish can seem to vanish against a dark backdrop. Certain deep-sea predators exploit this directly, carrying red light of their own as a private lantern. For now, red is simply the first color the ocean takes away. Below this line, life must make nearly all of its own light. Sunlight no longer reaches far enough to matter, and the last plants have already vanished from the water above. None of it comes from above anymore. Every glimmer down here starts inside a living body, a small chemical spark with no need for the surface at all. Creatures here carry their own faint stars, wherever they happen to be swimming. Fish eyes grow larger here, built to catch every scrap of glow. Past the last edge of daylight, eyes swell far beyond what a surface fish would ever need. Bigger lenses gather more of the thin blue light drifting down from above. Some pupils widen further still, tuned to ignore wavelengths that no longer matter. A larger eye means one more chance of noticing a single flash before it fades. Lanternfish carry rows of light organs along their bellies. These small organs, called photophores, run in tidy lines from throat to tail. Each one glows with a pale blue-green light, arranged almost like buttons down a coat. Different species wear their own particular pattern, exact enough that a trained eye could name the fish just from its rows. In the dark, a lanternfish looks like its own small constellation. Let a small warmth begin somewhere near your chest now, spreading outward at its own pace. Feel it move into your shoulders, loosening whatever they were holding on to. It slips down each arm next, all the way to your fingertips. It continues through the hips, into the legs, and settles into your feet last of all. Nothing left tense, nothing left waiting, just warmth filling you the way. Faint light fills dark water, low and complete. Their light may break up their outline when seen from below. A predator hunting upward looks for a dark shape against the pale water overhead. A fish lit from beneath, at just the right brightness, erases that shape almost completely. Nothing to spot, nothing to chase. It is camouflage built from light, rather than shadow, matched carefully to whatever hangs above. This trick is called counter-illumination, matching the faint glow of the sky above. Sensors along a fish's back may measure exactly how much light is falling from the surface. Photophores along its belly then adjust to match that brightness. Too dim, and a shadow gives it away. Too bright, and the glow itself becomes obvious. Somewhere between the two lies the narrow band that keeps a fish nearly invisible. Hatchetfish are thin as blades, built almost entirely for hiding in silhouette. Their bodies are pressed nearly flat from side to side, leaving barely any shadow to cast. Eyes sit tubular and enormous, angled straight upward toward the faint light above. Little about them wastes space. Everything, from shape to eye to organ, seems arranged around a single purpose, staying unseen. A hatchetfish can tune its belly light to match the water above it. As clouds drift over the surface far away, or the moon shifts behind them, the light filtering down changes by the moment. The hatchetfish adjusts its glow to follow. The match is rarely perfect. Even so, it is close enough, often enough, to keep a predator guessing about what it is actually looking at. Deep-sea shrimp release a burst of glowing fluid when threatened. The fluid sprays out near the mouth and spreads instantly through the surrounding water. Within a moment, a bright blue-white cloud hangs where the shrimp used to be. The shrimp itself is already gone, backing away into the dark. The light stays behind, doing the work alone. That cloud can startle a predator long enough for the shrimp to vanish. A sudden burst of brightness in total darkness draws the eye instantly, pulling attention away from the small body, slipping past it. The confusion lasts only a heartbeat. That is usually enough. By the time the glow fades, the shrimp is already somewhere else, folded back into the ordinary dark. Vampire squid rely on light rather than ink, since ink is costly this deep. Producing a fresh cloud of ink takes resources few creatures can spare at this depth. Instead, this squid flashes patterns across its skin, using light as both warning and confusion. It saves its body's reserves for the long, slow drift ahead. Down here, A puff of ink would be a luxury it cannot afford. Cockeyed squid keep one eye large and skyward, one small and downward. The larger eye bulges upward, pale and swollen, built to gather every trace of light from above. The smaller eye stays tucked low, dark and modest, angled toward the blackness beneath. Nature rarely builds a face this lopsided. Yet for a creature living between two very different kinds of dark, it makes a strange kind of sense. One eye watches for silhouettes, the other watches for flashes. The upward gaze scans for shapes, blotting out the last pale light from the surface. The downward gaze searches instead for the small sparks of bioluminescent creatures moving below. Two different worlds seen at once. Few animals split their attention so completely between what looms above and what glimmers beneath. Siphonophores form loose colonies that can glow along their entire length. Each colony is not one animal but thousands of small, specialized units working as a single body. Light can ripple through the whole structure at once or flare in just one section. Seen whole, a colony can stretch farther than most fish will ever grow. It moves through the water like a long, lit ribbon suspended in nothing. Somewhere above you now, a candle's ember is slowly losing its glow, the way it always does near the end of a long evening. There is no need to watch it fade. Let your shoulders drop a little further into whatever is holding you. Your breath can slow to match that dimming light without any effort on your part. Everything softens like that ember, one small degree at a time, until there is only warmth left, and then only rest. A single siphonophore may stretch farther than a person is tall. Its long body trails through open water in a single connected line, drifting where the current carries it. Some grow far longer still, extending well beyond that first measure. Along the way, each segment carries its own small share of light. From end to end, the whole colony glows as one continuous thread. Some siphonophores pulse light in traveling waves down their bodies. The glow does not flash all at once, but rolls smoothly from one end toward the other. Watched from a distance, it can look almost like a heartbeat passing through the whole colony. No single unit controls the wave alone. It simply moves, segment by segment, the way a ripple crosses the surface of a pond. A marine biologist once mistook a glowing siphonophore for a broken instrument reading. Data from a deep-sea sensor showed a strange, steady pulse that made no obvious sense. For a while, the readings were dismissed as equipment failure, a glitch worth ignoring. No one suspected at first that something alive was producing the pattern. The truth only surfaced once. Someone looked twice at numbers everyone else had already written off. That instrument, left running by accident, recorded the first clear trace of a hidden colony. It had been switched on for a routine check and simply never turned off. Hours later, it had captured a long, rhythmic glow that no one had planned to look for. The oversight, small and unremarkable at the time, became the first real evidence that such colonies pulsed light this way in the wild. Stoplight loosejaws are among the few fish that produce red light. Most deep-sea creatures glow in blue or green, colors that travel easily through seawater. This fish breaks that pattern, producing a beam of red instead. It sits just beneath each eye, small and steady. In a world built almost entirely on blue, that single patch of red stands apart. Their red glow is invisible to most deep-sea eyes, acting as a private flashlight. Most deep-sea eyes are tuned only to blue and green, the colors that travel furthest through water. Red barely registers in their world at all. A loosejaw's beam slips past them unseen, a channel tuned to almost nobody. It hunts in a color hardly anyone else can find. This lets a loosejaw see prey that cannot see it in return. The fish scans the water ahead, lit by its own red beam, while everything nearby stays blind to that light. creatures that would flee from blue or green drift along undisturbed. The loose jaw simply watches, unseen, until the moment it strikes. Its own light offers an advantage that no defense can counter. Anglerfish dangle a glowing lure just above their waiting jaws. The lure sways in the current at the end of a long fin ray, drawing curious eyes toward it in the dark. Smaller fish, mistaking it for an easy meal, drift closer without knowing what waits beneath. The anglerfish barely needs to move at all. Patience, not speed, is the whole of its strategy. That lure runs on bacteria the fish carries and feeds inside its own body. The light is not made by the anglerfish itself, but by billions of glowing bacteria housed in a special pouch. The fish supplies shelter and nutrients. The bacteria supply the glow. Neither could manage the trick alone. It is a partnership built entirely in the dark. Confirming the bond between anglerfish and their bacteria took researchers decades. Early observers assumed the light came from the fish's own tissue, the way a firefly makes its own glow. Only later study, culturing the bacteria and tracing their species, proved the light belonged to something else, living inside the fish. The answer arrived slowly, one specimen at a time. What looked like a single organism turned out to be two. Let the muscles around your eyes loosen now, the small tension you didn't notice easing away. Your jaw can rest heavy, lips barely touching, no need to hold any shape at all. Behind closed eyes, there is only a dim red hush, the color your eyelids make when light outside fades. Let your forehead smooth, the way a still pond loses its ripples. Nothing in this thought needs to travel further tonight. Bacterial light in the ocean glows steadily, unlike the flashes of many animals. Where a jellyfish or ostracod flickers on and off in an instant, colonies of light-making bacteria hold a constant glow that can last for hours. There is no pulse, no rhythm, only an even shine. This kind of light behaves less like a signal and more like a lamp left burning. It simply stays on until something changes. Steady light suits creatures that need constant illumination rather than signals. A lure has to keep blowing long enough for prey to notice and approach. A flash would end too soon to matter. Fish that host these bacteria do not need to control timing, only intensity. Some cover the glow with a flap of skin, like a shutter over a window. Others simply let it shine without pause. Shrimp in the deep sea sometimes host colonies of these same glowing bacteria. Instead of producing their own chemical light, certain species carry bacterial cultures inside dedicated organs, much like anglerfish do. The arrangement spreads an even wash of light across the shrimp's underside. Both partners benefit from the exchange, one glowing, one sheltered. The strategy has appeared more than once in creatures with little else in common. The midnight zone begins where the last trace of surface light disappears entirely. Below this line, sunlight contributes nothing at all, no matter how bright the day above. Every bit of illumination from here down is made by living things themselves. Pressure builds, and temperature keeps dropping, untouched by any sun. Water pressure at this depth would crush an unprotected human chest instantly, collapsing air spaces and stopping a heart before help could ever arrive. Yet fish here swim without any special armor. Their bodies hold no trapped air to compress. Fluids inside them press outward with the same force pressing in. Balance, not strength, is what lets them live where nothing built for the surface ever could. Vampire squid drift almost motionless, holding their arms in a loose webbed pose that costs almost nothing to maintain. Down here, chasing prey burns fuel that may never be replaced. So the vampire squid waits instead, letting slow currents carry it through the cold. Its body runs on a metabolism far slower than most animals its size. Stillness, for this creature, is a form of survival. Black dragonfish carry a pair of small light organs positioned just beneath each eye, like tiny headlamps built into the skull. These organs sit close enough to the eye to throw light exactly where the fish is looking. Nothing else nearby produces anything like them. The placement lets the dragonfish scan the water directly ahead without turning its whole body. It hunts by pointing its gaze, and the light follows. A dragonfish's red glow lets it search for prey that cannot see red light at all. Most deep-sea eyes are tuned only to blue and green, the colors that travel farthest through seawater. Red light fades within the first stretch of depth, so evolution rarely bothered building eyes to catch it. The dragonfish, having found a way to produce it anyway, hunts under a light that its prey never notices. It sees without being seen. Viperfish carry a single glowing lure at the tip of a long fin ray, held out ahead of the mouth like a fishing line cast into the dark. The lure sits far enough forward that a curious fish can approach it without ever noticing the jaws waiting behind. Long, needle-like teeth stay hidden until the moment strikes. One point of light does all the work of attraction. That lure can be moved with a slow, deliberate rhythm, mimicking the drifting motion of a smaller, easier meal. A viperfish will raise and lower the glowing tip, pause, then raise it again, patient enough to wait for something hungry to notice. The motion never rushes. Whatever approaches believes it has found food of its own. It has instead found the mouth waiting just behind the light. Let the exhale run a little longer this time, past where it usually ends, into a stretch of quiet you don't need to fill. Nothing waits at the bottom of that breath except more breath. Your shoulders can hang from your collarbones now, loose as something set down. Each inhale arrives on its own, unasked, unhurried by you. Let the next one simply happen, the way the tide simply happens, without any decision at all. Gulper eels open their jaws wide enough to engulf prey far larger than the eel's own slender body would suggest. The mouth unfolds like a loose sack stretching to accommodate whatever swims inside. Down here, meals arrive rarely, so nothing edible gets refused for being too big. A gulper eel's whole shape seems built around that single possibility. Everything else about it stays thin, almost an afterthought. At the very tip of a gulper eel's tail sits a small point of light, easy to miss against the size of that gaping mouth. Curious fish, drawn toward the glow, swim toward the tail end, unaware of what waits at the other. Whether this light truly functions as a lure remains something researchers still puzzle over, since so few have ever been observed feeding in the wild. The tail glows regardless, quietly doing its uncertain work. Deep-sea octopuses in this zone rarely produce any light of their own, favoring camouflage instead of glow. Many can shift their skin's color and texture to match the seafloor or blend into open water. Where a fish might flash, a lure, or a shrimp release glowing fluid, these octopuses simply vanish by staying still and pale. Darkness itself becomes their disguise. Silence and stillness serve them better than any light ever could. Not every deep-sea animal glows, and marine biology has no tidy answer for why. Some species tested in labs show no trace of light at all, no matter the stimulus. Diet, habitat, even a lineage's own history may all play some part. The pattern resists a single explanation. Darkness, it seems, doesn't require light to survive it. A submersible pilot once described the midnight zone as a sky turned upside down. Points of light drifted past the viewport like slow-moving stars, scattered without pattern. He said it felt less like descending and more like floating into some inverted night. Nothing about the comparison was exaggeration. The dark around him truly held its own small constellations. Every flash and glow around that submersible came from a living source, not a machine. No control panel, No exterior lamp produced them. Each point of light belonged to some creature going about its own business nearby. The pilot's instruments only recorded what was already happening in the water. Nothing needed to be switched on for that sky to appear. Bioluminescent flashes here can startle a diver used to silent dark water. A sudden burst near the mast, then nothing, then another somewhere else entirely. There's no rhythm to prepare for, no warning before the light appears. Even experienced observers have flinched at a flash too close to the faceplate. The dark rarely stays as empty as it looks. Some deep fish flashlight only in short defensive bursts, never for long. A pulse lasts a fraction of a second before the water goes dark again. Nothing about the display lingers or repeats without reason. The fish that use this trick seem to treat light as something spent, not left running. A flash appears, does its work, and is gone. A brief flash uses less energy and gives a predator less time to aim. Anything longer risks becoming a target instead of a distraction. Timing, here, matters as much as brightness. A creature that flashes and vanishes leaves little for a hunter to track. The advantage lies entirely in how quickly the light disappears again. Energy is scarce this deep, and light is never produced carelessly. Every photon costs something a creature cannot easily replace. Nothing down here glows simply for the sake of glowing. What light exists tends to serve a purpose worth its price. In a place this poor in food, waste of any kind is rare. Heaviness gathers first in your feet now, a slow fullness settling into the arches and heels. It rises without hurry into the calves, then the backs of the knees, one quiet weight after another. Your thighs sink a little further into whatever holds them. Hips loosen their grip on the day. Let each part of you grow heavier than the last, the way sand settles after water stops moving it. Food rarely falls this far, so every glow must be worth its cost. A meal drifting down from above might take days or weeks to arrive, if it arrives at all. Nothing here can afford to waste a signal on chance. Light becomes a tool aimed carefully, not scattered freely. Down at this depth, even brightness has to be earned. Beyond the midnight dark, the abyssal zone stretches across the ocean floor in near total stillness. It covers far more of the planet's surface than any mountain range or forest above water. Cold settles into everything here, steady and unchanging through the seasons. Currents move slowly, if they move at all. Life persists anyway, spread thin across an enormous, quiet plain. Amphipods scavenging the seafloor here sometimes carry patches of glowing tissue on their own bodies. The light isn't always theirs by birth. Often it comes from bacteria or leftover glow picked up while feeding on something that once glowed itself. A scavenger can end up marked by the very light it consumed. Down here, even a meal can leave a trace behind. A sea cucumber living in this zone can release a cloud of glowing particles when disturbed. The particles drift free from its body like scattered sparks. Unlike a fish darting away, a sea cucumber has almost no speed to rely on. Light becomes its only quick defense. Once released, those small glowing specks linger in the water long after the animal itself has gone still. Those particles may stick to a predator, marking it for something larger nearby. A fish that brushes against the cloud carries the glow with it afterward, whether it wants to or not. That glow becomes a kind of address, visible from a distance in the dark. Anything larger patrolling nearby can follow the light straight to its source. The sea cucumber escapes. The marked predator does not stay hidden for long. This trick has earned a name, a burglar alarm that tags the burglar itself. Most alarms only announce danger. This one follows the intruder afterward, glowing wherever it goes. Biologists have found the comparison fitting enough to keep using it. It captures something true about how little effort a small, slow animal needs to spend once its light has done the work. Brittle stars scattered across the abyssal floor can ripple with faint traveling light. The glow moves along their thin arms in a wave, one segment lighting after another. Seen from above, it can look almost like a slow signal passing hand to hand. Nobody watching needs to understand the pattern. It happens whether or not anything is there to see it. Hydrothermal vents nearby glow faintly with heat, though rarely with light, made by life. The glow comes from mineral, rich water heated far past ordinary ocean temperatures. It shows up on sensitive cameras as a dim reddish shimmer around the vent's mouth. Almost nothing about this light is chemical or biological. It is simply heat, visible for a moment before the cold water swallows it again. Near these vents, a shrimp may sense that heat glow through modified eyes. Its eyes aren't built the way ordinary shrimp eyes are. They sit closer to the shrimp's back, angled toward the warmth above, rather than the world ahead. Researchers suspect this lets the shrimp find the vent's edge without drifting into water hot enough to harm it. A small adjustment, built for one very particular kind of light. Trenches, sinking deeper, still hold creatures rarely seen by any camera or net. Some of the ocean's lowest places remain visited only a handful of times in all of human history. Whatever lives there does so without regard for whether anyone ever arrives to look. Pressure alone keeps most instruments from lasting long. The little that has been recorded suggests there is still far more waiting in that dark than has ever been counted. Somewhere in the walls, a low sound settles and then lets go. The way old houses breathe at night, it doesn't ask you to listen. Let it pass through the room without following it anywhere. Your jaw can loosen now, just slightly, the way a hand opens when it forgets it was holding something. Let your shoulders drop a little further into whatever is beneath them. There's no need to notice when the sound fades completely. Lowered far below the planned depth, one expedition's camera recorded flashes nobody expected. The team had meant to stop hundreds of meters higher, but the cable kept running. By the time they noticed, the camera was already deeper than any of their instruments had been built to survey. What came back on the footage showed bursts of light in a pattern, none of them recognized from anything closer to the surface. Kept almost by accident, that extra footage later proved a new source of light down there. No one on the team had expected to find anything worth reviewing past the planned stopping point. When someone finally watched the extra minutes, the pattern of flashes matched nothing cataloged from shallower water. It became one of the small proofs that deeper waters still hold sources of light no expedition had recorded before. Most animals tested at extreme depth still carry some capacity for light, even where conditions seem impossibly harsh. Researchers sampling near the ocean's lowest reaches keep finding light organs in creatures collected almost at random. The trait doesn't fade out with depth the way daylight does. It persists, turning up in fish, shrimp, and jellies pulled from waters few instruments ever reach. Bioluminescence appears to be less the exception in the deep sea and more the rule. Surveys across many depths and many groups of animals keep arriving at the same impression. Where sunlight fails, living light seems to fill the gap it leaves behind. Darkness, it turns out, is rarely truly dark, once life has had enough time to answer it. Counterillumination remains one of the most common uses of living light. Animals angle rows of belly lights downward, matching the faint glow that still filters from far above. Seen from below, their outline seems to disappear into the water itself. This single trick shows up again and again across unrelated species, suggesting how useful it must be. A predator seen from below is far easier to notice than one that hides its shadow. Sunlight, even weak and scattered, casts a shape any watching eye can catch. Matching that faint glow erases the outline almost entirely. It is a defense built not from armor or speed, but from disappearing exactly where it matters most. Lure light draws curious prey close enough to be caught in an instant. A small glow, waved gently or held still, can look enough like food to be worth investigating. Once something drifts near to look closer, distance stops mattering. The predator barely has to move at all. Startle light works by flashing suddenly, buying a heartbeat of confusion. A burst of brightness in total darkness can disorient a predator mid-attack. That instant of confusion is often enough. The prey uses the flash not to fight, but simply to disappear while the attacker still blinks. Sacrificial light, like a glowing decoy, redirects an attack away from its owner. Some creatures release a piece of themselves that keeps glowing after it separates. A predator lunges for the light instead of the animal that made it. What looked like the whole creature was only a small, expendable part of it. Communication light lets some species recognize their own kind in total darkness. Specific flash patterns, timed and colored just so, act almost like a name spoken in the dark. Two animals of the same species can find each other this way without ever needing to see clearly. In water where nothing else carries meaning, light becomes language. Let warmth begin now, low in your belly, just beneath your ribs. Let it spread first toward your back, filling the space between your shoulder blades. Then let it move down, into your hips, loosening whatever has been held there all day. It reaches your thighs next, heavy and slow, then your knees, then the backs of your calves. By the time it reaches your ankles, most of you will already be asleep. Firefly squid gather in dense groups to flash together during certain seasons. Off certain coasts, thousands rise from deeper water toward the shallows. Each squid carries its own small cluster of light organs along its arms. When the group ignites at once, the sea itself seems to pulse. No single squid commands the display. The timing simply arrives, shared by all of them together. Their synchronized glow along the shoreline has drawn spectators for generations. Fishermen once timed their nets to the squid's seasonal rise, guided only by the blue light on the water. Villages built small traditions around the nights the bay turned luminous. Boats went out quietly, lanterns unnecessary. The glow was bright enough to fish by, and beautiful enough to simply watch. Symbiotic bacteria power the light of many fish, squid, and even some clams. These animals do not make their own chemical glow. Instead, they carry colonies of luminous bacteria inside their bodies, feeding and housing them in exchange for light. The partnership runs so deep that neither side seems to function fully without the other. A host animal often shelters its bacteria in a special organ built just for them. This structure, called a light organ, provides food, oxygen, and a stable dark chamber where the bacteria can multiply. Its shape and position vary by species. Tucked near the belly, the eye, or along the flank, the organ exists for one purpose only. It exists to keep the light alive. Some hosts can control their bacterial light like switching a lamp on and off. Nerve signals restrict the oxygen supply to the bacteria, and without oxygen, the glow briefly stops. Release the flow again, and light returns almost instantly. The bacteria never move, only the conditions around them change, and the light answers. Others let the bacteria glow steadily and simply shutter it with a fold of skin. Instead of starving the light of oxygen, the animal covers its own organ with a movable flap, like a shade drawn over a window. Hold the flap back, and the glow reappears exactly as it was. The bacteria keep working the whole time, patient and unbothered underneath. A biologist named Osamu Shimomura spent years isolating the glow of a jellyfish. Working through countless specimens collected from cold coastal waters, he searched for the exact molecule responsible for their pale green light. Progress came slowly. jar by jar, jellyfish by jellyfish. It took patience most laboratories could not have afforded. He kept going anyway. That isolated protein later became one of the most useful tools in modern biology. What began as a curiosity about jellyfish light turned into a way of tagging and tracking living processes never before visible. Laboratories far from any ocean adopted it within years. A discovery made for its own sake ended up reshaping how science watches life happen. Called green fluorescent protein, it let scientists watch processes once invisible inside living cells. Attached to other molecules, it glows wherever those molecules travel, turning hidden biology into something visible under a simple light. Researchers could finally watch a single protein move through a living cell in real time. What once required guesswork now had a color and a shape. Its discovery eventually earned a shared Nobel Prize, decades after the first jellyfish were collected. The recognition arrived long after the early jars of extract, long after the patient counting of glowing specimens by hand. By then, the protein had already traveled into thousands of laboratories worldwide. The prize simply confirmed what practice had already shown. A small green glow had quietly changed how life itself gets studied. Dust hangs in a single shaft of light somewhere above you, barely moving. It drifts without any hurry, rising, falling, rising again. Your breath can slow to match it. Let your shoulders release into the mattress, one side and then the other. There is no task in this room tonight. Only the dust turning in its slow private orbit, and you sinking a little deeper into stillness with each breath. Early researchers ground up thousands of jellyfish by hand to gather enough glowing protein. Working along the tide pools of the Pacific Northwest, they collected specimens by the bucketful, night after night. Extracting even a small amount of usable protein required an enormous number of animals. The work was slow, repetitive, and unglamorous. Still, jar by jar, the material accumulated. That protein still lights up laboratories around the world today. What once took thousands of jellyfish to gather is now produced easily, without harming a single animal. Its pale green glow has become a familiar sight under laboratory light. Few tools travel this far from their origin. A discovery born from careful jellyfish counting now sits on shelves everywhere. Bioluminescence and fluorescence are related, but not identical processes. Both produce visible glow, and both fascinated the same early researchers. Bioluminescence begins as a chemical reaction inside the animal itself. Fluorescence works differently. It simply absorbs light and sends part of it back out, changed in color. Fluorescent creatures need outside light to glow. Bioluminescent ones make their own. A coral under sunlight might shimmer green without producing any light of its own accord. A lanternfish in total darkness needs no outside source at all. One borrows light. The other builds it, quietly, from chemistry alone. Some deep-sea animals combine both tricks in a single glowing body. Certain corals and a few fish carry pigments that fluoresce under available light, alongside organs that produce their own glow entirely. The two systems work side by side, rarely interfering. Nature, it seems, saw no reason to choose only one method of shining. William Beebe descended in a bathysphere in the 1930s and reported flashes outside the window. Sealed inside a small steel sphere, lowered from a ship, he watched the black water beyond the glass fill with unexplained bursts of light. He described them carefully in his notebooks, unsure how anyone above the surface would receive the account. The ocean, it turned out, had more to show than he expected. Few colleagues believed his account until later dives confirmed the same glowing dark. Without photographs to support his descriptions, some dismissed the flashes as tricks of imagination or fatigue. Decades passed before better equipment returned to the same depths. What returned matched his notes almost exactly. The dark he described had been there all along. Modern remotely operated vehicles now record footage no human eye had ever witnessed directly. These machines descend far past the limits of any crewed dive, carrying cameras built to withstand crushing pressure. They linger where no submarine could safely stay for long. What they capture reaches screens on the surface almost as it happens, revealing scenes once only imagined. Cameras built to avoid triggering light have revealed animals that vanish under normal lighting. Standard camera lights are bright enough to startle deep-sea creatures into fleeing before they can be seen clearly. Researchers designed dimmer, red-tinted systems instead, closer to wavelengths many deep-sea eyes cannot detect. Under this quieter approach, animals behave as though nothing has changed. Their true glow, undisturbed, finally comes into view. Red light passed unnoticed by many deep-sea eyes, and engineers built cameras around that gap. Instead of white beams that sent animals fleeing, these systems glowed low and red, nearly invisible to the creatures they filmed. For the first time, researchers watched natural behavior unfold without interruption. A squid drifted, a shrimp fed undisturbed. The footage showed a world that had been hiding in plain sight, only from the wrong kind of light. Notice your jaw now, and let it hang loose, unclenched. The muscles there often hold more than we realize, small tensions built from a day of words unspoken. Let them dissolve. Your eyelids have grown heavy, resting closed like a curtain drawn at the end of a long performance. Behind them is only warm, dark, wide, and empty, asking nothing of you. Let your face settle, the way water settles once nothing disturbs it. That unobtrusive observation changed how deep-sea behavior studies were conducted afterward. Older methods, built around bright lights and quick submersible passes, had shaped decades of assumptions about how deep-sea animals lived. Red light asked less of them. Researchers began redesigning their approach around minimal disturbance, valuing longer, quieter watches over brief, bright ones. Patience, it turned out, revealed more than force ever had. Bioluminescent bacteria are used today to test water safety in laboratories. Scientists keep cultures of glowing marine bacteria alive under controlled conditions, feeding them just enough to sustain a steady shine. That shine serves as a baseline, a measure of ordinary health. Researchers compare it against samples suspected of contamination. Nothing about it is artificial. The bacteria simply live, glow, and answer. A drop of contaminated water dims their glow, giving a quick warning sign. Toxins interfere with the chemistry behind the bacteria's light, slowing the reaction that makes them shine. Dimmer glow, stronger warning. Results can appear within minutes rather than days. Engineers have built portable versions of this test, small enough to carry to a riverbank or a factory outflow, using an old curiosity as a practical safeguard. Medical researchers use glowing markers borrowed from jellyfish to trace disease inside the body. The green fluorescent protein first isolated from a glowing jellyfish can be attached to specific cells or molecules, lighting them up under a microscope. Tumors, nerve pathways, even the spread of infection can be followed this way. Nothing else lights so precisely. What began as a curiosity about jellyfish now helps map processes far too small to see with the naked eye. Firefly enzymes help forensic scientists detect trace amounts of blood at a scene. The same reaction that lights a firefly's tail can be adapted to react with iron in blood, producing a soft glow wherever trace evidence remains, even after surfaces look clean. The room goes dark first. Investigators spray a solution and watch for the telltale shine. A firefly's chemistry, born in a summer meadow, now works in crime labs far from any field. Living light, once only a curiosity, found use as a tool across many sciences. What began with fishermen noticing glowing nets and sailors describing burning seas eventually reached laboratories studying cancer, water quality, and criminal evidence. No single discovery made this happen. It grew gradually, through decades of researchers borrowing chemistry from creatures that never intended to be useful. The ocean's oldest trick found new work on dry land. Deep-sea expeditions still bring back species whose light has never been described. Every voyage into deep trenches or unexplored ridges seems to surface something unfamiliar. A fish with an unrecorded pattern of spots, a jelly with a glow. No catalog matches. Biologists sort through footage for months afterward, comparing new creatures against everything known so far. Many stay unnamed for years. The dark still holds more than any single expedition can catalog. The kitefin shark, discovered to glow in 2021, became the largest known luminous vertebrate. Living far below the surface, its skin carries light organs spread across the belly, producing a soft blue shine in total darkness. Researchers suspect the glow helps it vanish against the dim light filtering from above, the same counter-illumination trick used by far smaller fish. Its size surprised everyone. Living light, it seemed, belonged to giants as much as to the small and delicate. Much of the deep sea remains unexplored, and its light remains largely uncounted. Vast stretches of trench and plain have never been reached by any camera. Sonar can map the shape of the seafloor, but not the glow that moves across it. Each expedition returns with only a narrow slice of what might be down there. Most stays dark to us. The true count of living lights may never be complete. Cnidarians and arthropods account for a striking share of all the ocean's living light. Jellyfish, siphonophores, and their relatives glow across nearly every depth zone studied so far. Crustaceans, from tiny copepods to deep sea shrimp, contribute just as much. Together, these two groups outshine the fish and mollusks that also glow. No one owns this trick. It seems to have arisen again and again, in creatures that share almost nothing else in body or life. Breath moves through you now, unnoticed by anything but you. Each inhale arrives on its own, without effort. Let the next exhale stretch a little longer than the last, spreading low through your chest. No counting needed. Somewhere far below, something is glowing without an audience, the same way your breath moves without asking to be watched. Let it continue on its own. Every zone of the ocean, from sunlit surface to abyssal floor, holds some living light. Near the surface, plankton spark with movement. In the twilight, lanternfish and squid glow along their sides. Deeper still, anglerfish and dragonfish carry their own small lanterns. Even the trenches hold faint light. None stay fully dark. From top to bottom, the sea keeps making its own spark. Depth changes not just pressure and temperature, but the very color of survival. Near the surface, light comes in every shade the sun provides. Lower down, blue and green remain the only colors worth keeping. Red fades first, then most others follow, until darkness swallows the rest. By the time true dark sets in, animals must build their own palette from nothing. What glows down there answers to different rules than anything living in the sun. Across time and depth, creatures share a way of making light. A firefly blinking over a meadow and a dragonfish drifting a mile down will never meet. They live centuries or oceans apart. Yet both carry a chemistry nearly identical at its core. Distance and time separate them. The spark that lights them does not. A firefly's flash and an anglerfish's lure share the very same chemistry. Both rely on luciferin reacting with luciferase to release photons without heat. One evolved in humid summer air, the other in crushing black water. The reaction itself does not care where it happens. It simply glows. life discovered this trick more than once in places that could not be more different. A shared chemistry links a summer meadow to the floor of the deepest trench, a child chasing fireflies, and a submersible pilot watching a lure sway are, in their own way, witnessing the same reaction. Different creatures, different pressures, different centuries even. The molecules make no distinction. Wherever they exist, they do what they have always done. They turn stored chemical energy into light. The ocean's darkness, once thought empty, is instead filled with small, quiet fires. Sailors once described glowing seas that seemed to burn beneath their ships. That glow, wave after wave, came from countless plankton reacting to disturbance. What looked empty from a deck at night held more life, per drop of water, than most people could imagine. The sea was never truly dark. It only seemed that way. Each flash below the waves marks a decision to lure, to warn, or to escape. A lantern sways to draw something curious close. A sudden burst blinds a predator for just long enough. A trail of light drifts away from its owner, drawing an attack elsewhere. None of these flashes are random. Every glow down there serves a purpose, even if no human eye is there to see it. None of that light needs an audience to keep glowing tonight. Down in the abyssal dark, a photophore fires whether or not anything drifts by to see it. The lure sways, the flash bursts, the trail of luminous mucus drifts loose into black water, indifferent to witnesses. Chemistry does not wait for permission. It happens because the reaction is already underway, the way a heart keeps beating whether or not anyone counts the pulses. Below the surface right now, a lure sways slowly in the dark, somewhere off a fish's chin. A small bulb of light tips back and forth like a lantern on a long line. Nothing rushes it. It moves the way weeds move in a current too slow to notice. Whatever waits nearby has time. Down there, patience is the only currency that matters, and the lure simply keeps swaying, on and on. Elsewhere, a small burst of light fades after doing its quiet work. A shrimp has already vanished into the black, leaving only a cloud of glow behind it, dimming second by second. The predator that chased it is left blinking at empty water. By the time the light goes out completely, the shrimp is somewhere else entirely, unseen, unfollowed, already still. Feel the weight settle first at your shoulders now, sinking a little deeper into whatever holds you. Let that heaviness travel down your arms, past your elbows, into your wrists until your hands rest without asking anything of themselves. Your spine follows next, one small stretch of it after another, easing into the mattress the way sediment settles through still water, taking its own long time to reach the bottom, and needing nowhere else to be once it arrives. This same ocean has been glowing like this, night after night, for longer than anyone has kept record, long before ships crossed it, before nets or cameras or curious hands. Its waters were already sparking with the same blue fire. Tonight it does the same thing it did last night, and every night before that, stretching back further than any calendar can hold. The glow does not depend on being watched to continue. Long before any eye existed to see it, the deep sea likely already glowed. Chemistry capable of producing light appears to have arisen many times in many separate lineages, long before anything with a retina could notice it. The reaction did not wait for an audience to be worth having. It simply persisted in the dark, generation after generation, until eyes finally evolved that could catch what had been shining all along. Living light asks nothing of the listener but to notice it exists. It does not need to be understood, only acknowledged, the way starlight asks nothing but a glance upward. Somewhere below the waves tonight, a small light is doing exactly what it has always done, without concern for who is awake to see it. You do not have to do anything with that thought. You only have to let it settle, the way everything else has, into rest. Rest now, the way the deep sea rests, lit softly from within and asking nothing back. Somewhere far below, a lantern is still swaying, a cloud of light still fading, a colony still pulsing its slow blue rhythm into water that has no need of mourning. You can borrow that same stillness now. Let your own small light, whatever it is, simply glow where it is, unwatched and unhurried. Good night.